Hey there guys, my name is Roman and I left my home country of Russia in the year of 2022, and ever since I left I've been keeping up a lot with the things that Russia has been banning. Since the war with Ukraine started, Russia banned a bunch of stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Discord recently as well, but also Russia has been in a bit of a huge battle with Google. Not that long ago, what happened is that YouTube actually started getting slowed down in Russia, and many people right now in Russia actually cannot access YouTube without using a VPN. And YouTube in response actually deactivated all Russian Google AdSense accounts. So basically, if you're a Russian YouTuber that lives in Russia, you can no longer monetize your YouTube channel. And throughout this entire time, since the year of 2022, Google has actually been constantly getting sued by the Russian government. And the Russian government, they obviously win all the court cases against Google in Russian courts. And they were getting so many fines that in 2022, Google Russia actually officially announced their bankruptcy. And I thought that that was already pretty ridiculous, but it's actually gotten way worse now, where Russia has fined Google for an amount of money that is more than the entire world's economy is worth, or something like that. So yes guys, my name is Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian, and in today's video, I would like to talk about Russia's recent war against social media, and also talk a little bit about how Russian YouTubers right now are actually being put under a strict monitoring regime or whatever, and essentially Russia has just introduced a bunch of new laws and rules for influencers, and they are absolutely insane. I have no other way of describing it. By the way guys, some of you might be wondering whether I still have an issue with my AdSense. I've been talking about this in a previous video. It is actually related to me being from Russia and it's pretty annoying, but long story short, I'm not demonetized on this channel currently, but the situation is still a little stupid. I'll have a new video coming out with an update pretty soon. But I do appreciate all of you guys' support and concern. Let's get into it and see what Russia and Google have been up to recently. So you've probably already heard about this news, because this is one of those news about Russia that actually everybody hears about because it is just so insanely ridiculous that it just becomes a meme immediately. So what happened is that Russia fined Google for more money than there is in the entire world. A Russian court has fined Google 2 DECILLION rubles. That is literally and ironically a number and a word that I've never heard of before until I heard this news story. But if you guys are wondering what 2 DECILLION rubles is, it's essentially a 2 followed by 36 zeros, and the fine is for restricting Russian state media channels on YouTube. Now, if you turn that into dollars, that is so in dollars it's actually this much, and I counted 34 zeros here, I think. So that's a lot of money. It's an amount of money that is not just more than what Google Russia is worth, because once again, Google Russia has already filed for bankruptcy, because even before this insane bajillion or whatever fine, they already could not pay off their debts to the Russian government because they already got fined like 1 billion times, essentially for banning Russian propaganda media on the website, like Russia Today and so on, and actual Russian state media. No, this amount of money is also not just more than the entirety of actual Google is worth, like the entire corporation of Google, right? No, this amount of money is actually bigger than the entire world's GDP. This is incredible. Again, I've already seen these news for the past few days, but like, it doesn't become less funny. But apparently, according to Russian officials, they realized the ridiculousness of this fine, and they're essentially saying that it's a fine that is kind of made up as a symbolic gesture to try to convince Google to come to their senses and essentially succumb to the demands of the Russian government. Which means to not only reinstate the channels of like Russia Today and all the other Russian state media and so on YouTube, but also to block stuff on YouTube according to the request of the Russian government. Which, by the way, they still can do. I've actually talked about this in a previous video called How Russia Still Controls YouTube. You guys should check it out. Russia can actually still come to Google and ask them to restrict certain content on like the territory of the Russian Federation or whatever. Basically to obstruct free speech and freedom of information. So that is great. I just love how, Western companies still a lot of the time succumb to the demands of the Russian government. Like, for example, Apple. This is something I've also talked about previously. Apple has been actually caught in 4K for deleting VPNs from the Russian App Store. Apple apparently removed like hundreds of VPNs from the Russian App Store, essentially so that the Russian people could no longer have access to a VPN and therefore have access to websites that the Russian government has banned. It's awesome. I fucking love it. I love capitalism. I love corruption. The Russian president's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, has said that as far as he understands the amount of 2 DECILLION babajillion babujillion but on kajillion rubles has to be just symbolic. According to his words, such a fine just demonstrates the the value of the problem that the Russian government has with Google. Google needs to stop restricting our media, but they are doing it. This should be a good reason for Google's leadership to take a look at the situation and to fix it. That is probably the best that the company can do. So essentially, yes, it's kind of a blackmail. They're essentially saying that we know that you guys cannot possibly pay this amount of money, it's too ridiculous, but we still did it nevertheless to just show you guys, the gravity of the problem that we have with you, and with you removing our Z media from YouTube. So Google, perhaps what you guys can do is just listen to our complaints and fix the issue and actually, once again, cave in to demands of the Russian Federation, and then we'd all be very jolly and friendly. And actually the funniest thing is that at the end of the day, Google does pay off a lot of the fines that the Russian government imposes on it. And actually what's been going on recently is that the Russian government has actually been trying to apply to courts in third countries to try to battle with Google, not even in Russian court, but in other courts. For example here, this is actually happening right now. A Russian company that represents the TV channel Spas, which is like an Orthodox Christian TV channel or whatever, they actually sued Google in South Africa. And apparently this court in South Africa has given an okay to arrest certain funds of Google in South Africa because of the complaints that is coming from Russia. So essentially, right, even though Russia is sanctioned, this and that, stuff like this can still happen and Google is actually suffering because of it. That is kind of ridiculous. So yeah, basically Russia is trying to kind of bully and blackmail and financially ruin Western companies so that they submit to Russia's demands and essentially bring back Russian propaganda stuff on their website and at the same time agree to take down content by Russia's notice. This is, for example, why Discord just got banned in Russia, because Discord actually disagreed to comply with Russia's demands to delete certain materials, certain content from Discord, right? And on the other hand, there are actually Western companies, once again, like Steam, that actually are deleting stuff on the notice of the Russian government. So essentially every single Western company right now is a kind of a crossroads, whether they choose to not comply with Russia and get endlessly, targeted with all these fines or bans and just put themselves in endless purgatory, essentially, an endless legal purgatory, or they choose to comply with Russia and actually continue business as usual, which is morally a way more of a shady stance, if you ask me. So yeah, if you guys are wondering what I'm thinking about all of this, what is going to happen to Google in Russia, I honestly feel like Google might just say fuck you and stop providing any and all services to Russia. Like, it's going to be impossible to register a new account if you're a Russian citizen or whatever. It's essentially going to be like Iran, like how sometimes in certain websites you're trying to register and you get to choose your country and you see there's no like Iran there. There's just gonna be no Russia when you try to register in YouTube or Google or something like that. I feel like that is just where it's going at this point, to be honest, and I don't really think that is good in any way. I grew up watching YouTube and using Google stuff, I guess you could say. I made my entire life here as a YouTuber coming from Russia, so like I have a soft spot for YouTube, so all of this is very, very sad. But yeah, I do not really know what is gonna happen, but it's not good for free speech either way. So yeah, Russia's war on social media is only continuing, and now it feels like this stuff is really starting to affect regular Russian citizens pretty negatively at this point. For example, I'm pretty sure that you guys have also heard of the fact that in 2022, Russia banned Meta and considered Meta a terrorist extremist organization. And effectively, by banning Meta, they also banned basically all Meta products such as Facebook and Instagram, but not WhatsApp. I guess they just couldn't take that, Russian grandmas really love using WhatsApp to send, gifts. Or videos saying, "С днем яблочного спаса" or something like that. If you have a Slavic grandma, you all know what I'm saying right now. You know what I'm talking about. If you don't, sorry guys, you're not in the cool club. And the whole reason for it basically because Facebook and Instagram introduced new rules where they would like allow hate speech towards Russians or like Russian forces in certain cases, right? Like Russian army. And that made Russia consider Facebook and Instagram extremist platforms. And right now Russia is pretty close to introducing a new law about actually banning Russian people from advertising on these so-called extremist social media platforms, right? So essentially this is a law that is currently still not fully signed, but it's already been signed в первом чтении, which essentially means like it's halfway there. All they need to do now is review it again and then put in signs that it's in the bin. So here I'm actually on this website that I used to use back in the day. It's like an explainer help out website for small Russian businesses and so on. When I had a business in Russia, this website helped me out. But now we're in a new reality, right? So This law basically states that one of the main rules is that essentially now advertisements will be prohibited on prohibited foreign resources. So basically it means that you're no longer going to be able to advertise on Instagram or Facebook. Influencers are not going to be allowed to post any advertisements, and business will not be allowed to order any advertisements on these social media platforms. Doesn't matter if it's a free kind of advertisements or barter. It's currently not even clear if it's gonna be allowed to conduct self-advertising. So essentially, for example, if you're a small business, if you bake cakes or whatever, right, and you have an Instagram page, depends on the way this law is going to be working, it technically could mean that people are not going to be able to even conduct business on Instagram anymore and kind of advertise themselves and what they do, right, and find clients, because a lot of business these days, that's what they do. In Russia as well, even currently, even after Instagram has gotten banned, you know, a ton of people still use Instagram. Even governmental officials still use Instagram with like VPN and so on. It is a bit ridiculous, but yes, that is what like the double think, double speak, double life in Russia is like. And so yeah, here it states that there's gonna be certain fines, but these actually fines that are normal for the advertising regulations, like anti-monopoly stuff, but they're saying that they'll probably introduce actually a higher fine for breaking this particular law, and they did that actually when they banned advertising for foreign agents. Yes, that's also a thing in Russia that's been introduced pretty recently. Essentially, if you're a foreign agent, probably anti-governmental speaker or something like that, you know, Russians can no longer buy advertisements from you, or else they're gonna be breaking the law. It's insane. It's ridiculous. However, once again, you guys know me. You guys know the way I make videos. First of all, I didn't want to just make, you know, an entire video about just the fact that Russia's, you know, find Google 20 bajillion, badunkajillion, whatever dollars, right? No guys, I'm not moist critical. I'm not gonna stretch out one news article to 8 minutes. You guys know me that if you watch my videos up to like the last half or like the last third, that's where the great stuff starts. Because just like, you know, with most things in Russia, you know, it only gets worse. And guys, you might have thought that that was pretty bad, right? All of those things that are happening with Google and Instagram or whatever, that's pretty bad, pretty restrictive, pretty annoying probably for Russian influencers too, and anybody who even wants to conduct any business. Because let's be honest, at this point, the border between influencer and businessman, it's really not even there almost. You might have thought that that was bad, but of course, guys, it gets worse. Essentially, Russians Communication and Internet Watch, Roskomnadzor, which is basically like an organ of the government that is basically devoted to only banning stuff on the internet. They have just also introduced a new rule, a new law for all the Russian influencers, YouTubers and so on. Basically now every single Russian influencer is going to have to register as an influencer in Roskomnadzor's database and essentially dox themselves and submit themselves to heavy scrutiny and heavy watch from Roskomnadzor. Basically what they want to do is that they want to monitor every single YouTuber and see what everybody is up to, and to have an easy access to those people and to put them in jail or to find them if they do not comply with Russia's increasingly more ridiculous demands and, you know, restrictions. And now since the 1st of November of 2024, so basically just now, this month, it has actually started working, and now Roskomnadzor, once again this Russian internet censorship agency, right? Essentially what they're going to be doing is now they're going to have a certain registry of influencers, YouTubers and so on, and if you're an influencer with an audience of over 10,000 users, you have to voluntarily register yourself in that registry of influencers. I also enjoyed this part here, by the way. After the influencer submits his inquiry to essentially become part of this registry, his personal page will be added to the registry of Roskomnadzor only in the case that the influencer does not spread information that is banned in the Russian Federation. For example, information that is aimed at propaganda of war or inciting national, racial, or religious hatred and animosity. So essentially, big if true, guys. Big if true. I cannot believe, it's so insane to me that propaganda of war and inciting religious, racial, or national hatred is information that is actually banned in the Russian Federation. I just thought that's what we see on state TV, but So yeah, pretty ridiculous, but obviously we all want to know, what are the repercussions of not voluntarily submitting yourself to this registry and essentially staying off the grid? Well, they're pretty bad. Let's check them out. The influencers whose pages will not be added to the registry of the Roskomnadzor, these influencers will not be allowed to receive donations or to essentially provide any links on their page that could either help them collect donations or advertising. That's what it says here. And these people will be also not allowed from posting their bank information once again for donations. This is fucking ridiculous. Okay, so it says here that social media users and other registered influencers, right, will not be allowed to repost content from pages of these, influencers who have been not registered. So if I get it correctly, since it says that basically Roskomnadzor will only add you to the registry if they consider you to be a law-abiding citizen, right, who does not, criticize Russia too much or whatever, this then basically means that they're gonna be punishing and inventing like new criminal cases or new fines basically against people who are like already basically dissidents in Russia, right? Like some opposition person is gonna be just not considered part of this registry, and then they're gonna constantly fine them or whatever if they're even able to do that, right? For just getting donations, or even as far as I understand, they're not gonna be able to advertise also on their pages. So once again, that advertising law with Instagram or whatever is kind of the same here. You're not gonna be able to advertise anything on your social media if you're like one of these unregistered untouchables of, the Russian blogosphere. But also, once again, as far as I understand, other influencers and other social media users will be like punished for like retweeting or reposting your stuff or whatever. So it basically means that they want to make like dissidents or whatever literally untouchable. Like you can't even press like anymore. If you press like or if you repost, you're basically spreading messaging of the untouchable, undesirable, unregistered dissident who's not even in the registry of Roskomnadzor, and you should be fined also. And people will just stop reposting dissident stuff, basically, which they already are doing, but people in Russia are already scared to, click like on certain stuff online. This is not a new thing at all, but they want to make it even worse, essentially. And yes, now what they also did is that on Gosuslugi, like the Russian super app, governmental services app, well, until recently, Gosuslugi was mainly used to like pay off fines or whatever, pay off tickets or pay off, certain governmental fees or whatever, or to perhaps make an appointment to a doctor or something like that. It's like a good app. Until recently, that was the point of it, but also now what Gosuslugi does is that it sends Russian man draft letters. So they're using Russia's brilliant sort of good e-government system. They're using it to send more people to the front line, which is, insane. That's just like cyberpunk dystopia, basically. Yes, now you can also go to Gosuslugi and get yourself registered as an influencer as part of this entire campaign. And actually a really funny story happened just now, right after this law was introduced. For me as a Russian person, kind of like my main motto of living in Russia is to have as least contact with governmental services like the police and everything as possible, to just kind of be, not to be off the grid, but try to minimize that contact to a certain degree, right? Some influencers apparently don't know much better, so what they did is that right after this law came into power, they started registering themselves, and what happened to a particular certain guy is really funny. Well, it's not funny, but it is kind of, in a dark humor kind of way. So this Telegram influencer here, who apparently has a Telegram channel about like fragrances or something, like he usually talks about fragrances, so yeah, Russian Jeremy Fragrance, I guess. Basically, he made this post right here, which went a little bit viral. Here it is, saying, guys, I've run into a bit of an interesting situation. This may be a coincidence, but today I've just applied to register my blog in the registry, because now if you have a blog with over 10,000 followers, you have to register yourself. And after 5 hours, I've gotten a draft letter essentially asking me to come to the Voenkomat, like draft office. Don't worry about me, guys. I finished, like he was in the army during university, basically. It's like, I don't know how to fucking describe it even. So yeah, he's basically saying, don't worry about me, guys. They're not gonna be, sending me to the front line or anything, but yes, he's showing a screenshot here saying, dear Kirill Alexeyevich, you've gotten a digital draft letter. You can press the link to check it out. And here's a screenshot where he submitted his registration of his blog. He did that at almost 11 in the morning, basically, and at 5 p.m. he got a, digital drafts asking him to come to the draft office to basically get checked out or whatever, right? Now, admittedly, yes, this is kind of funny. I'm actually personally leaning into this being more of a coincidence. Yes, it's really funny to imagine that this is like related, but I highly doubt that it is because, well, in Russia, a bunch of governmental institutions don't have that great of like a cohesion between each other, right? Just because you submit yourself to Roskomnadzor, it doesn't mean that like immediately somehow that is gonna make the draft military office aware of your address at the same time too. I don't think those are even connected systems really. Maybe they're getting better with this now. Who knows, right? They have to be trying to, right? But back in the day, like even 10 years ago or something like that in Russia, the draft offices, for example, they had all of their documentation on paper. And it's ridiculous to the point where like people have stolen like their personal documentation from the draft office and lit it on fire or whatever in order to avoid the army. There's been stories like that. Or just throw it out somewhere, right? And then the draft military office just basically doesn't even know you exist because they don't even have, they don't even have your documents anymore. They don't know that you are like a person that exists somewhere out there in the real world. That's how it worked like 10 years ago. So once again, I don't think Russia is that like cyberpunk advanced Orwellian government, right? And he actually posted this right after saying, I was scared to open this digital draft letter itself, but somebody in the comments said that it might have actually been sent earlier. And actually that is correct. The draft letter has a date of the 1st of November. I'm not really sure why it arrived today and not yesterday. No panicking. So yeah, he opened the draft letter and it shows here that it's actually for the 1st of November. So technically they sent the letter before he actually even applied to get registered in this registry of influencers, right? But once again, the idea of these things being connected is kind of comedic, but I don't really think it's not comedic in any way in the fact that the guy got a summons, that the guy has to go to the draft office now. No, that's nothing fun about that in my opinion, especially in the current climate of Russia. I'm definitely not trying to make fun of that, and I'm not trying to make fun of this guy because I don't think this guy has done anything to deserve it, right? But just, the idea that submitting yourself, registering yourself as an influencer would just get the reaction of, oh yeah, go to the front line, basically, from the Russian government. You know what I'm saying? That is kind of funny as an idea, but again, I do think it's probably a coincidence, but nevertheless, that does not make all of these new rules and laws for Russian influencers any less insane. And yeah, guys, what can I say? I feel very, very sad for Russian influencers, and I'm just really, really happy to be away from that country while being an influencer. And all I have to say is, irony aside and making fun aside, obviously this is sad. And I've been kind of a witness to all of this throughout my entire, adult or, teenage life, I guess. Ever since about 2015 or so, the Russian government has started paying way more attention to the internet, to what is happening on YouTube and Instagram and places like that, to what people post. I would say really before 2014, 2013 or something like that, the internet in Russia was a relatively free place and you could kind of say and do whatever. But I've watched this change over the last decade or so, and it's been getting more and more restrictive, less and less free, and that restrictiveness and destructiveness, it's only sort of progressed and it's skyrocketed basically after the war with Ukraine started, because now they just want to ban everything. So yeah, all I can say is, my advice to Russian influencers, once again, if you have money, if you earn money, if you're an influencer, honestly, once again, I understand it's hard and whatever, but if you have money, you really have no excuse. Leave. Because like at this point it's getting so ridiculous, and it's not even just Russia restricting you, but even Western social media platforms at this point, you cannot monetize with a Russian Google AdSense account. You can no longer even start a new Russian Google AdSense account, I think, right? So like it's very over. It's so over. And honestly, once again, I have zero hope currently as it is that it's gonna get better in any way for influencers in Russia and for the freedom of social media in Russia. So the only logical thing at this point is, yes, if you're an influencer, if you want to make a buck, if you want to continue living, if you want to continue doing what you want and not be constantly restricted by insane stuff for insane reasons, leave. It's once again, it's really brutal, and I don't like to say this, but that's kind of the truth. That's what I've done, and even I'm having trouble, but we'll get there, guys. We'll get there. Just as long as I'm not in Moscow or something. Again, I'm just really, really blessed and lucky to not be part of the Russian influencer community. But yeah, guys, I guess that is going to be pretty much it for today's video, though. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I have to apologize for my voice in this video. It's a little bit cracky and raspy and everything. I've been sick for like the past 4 days or something. It's been bad. My voice is still not fully there yet, but I really wanted to make this video. I really wanted to work. So nevertheless, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, then please make sure to slap that like on this video. And also guys, as always, if you guys would like to support me additionally, and that is financially, you can go to the link down in the description and become a YouTube member. It is basically like YouTube's own version of Patreon. It's a monthly donation. It's one of the best ways to support me. And you can also leave a super thanks underneath this video. Yes, these still work, so use it and abuse it while you guys still can. And yeah, I'm gonna go and have some warm tea or something, because I've been recording for an hour and I'm dying. Okay, but yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and I'm back on the grinds, and more stuff coming soon. See you guys later. Peace.